Metro Division Preview brought to you by Coast to Coast NHL Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the NHL Preview series that me and Mr. Maverick are throwing together to kick off the NHL season. I think everybody's starting to get as pumped as we are. This video, I think, is going to be the Metro.
Welcome. Well, I guess we might as well jump right into this division. Yep. This is probably one of the divisions that I could probably say we're more interested on, but we're not as big as followers, or we don't have as much skin in the game in this division compared to maybe some of the other ones around. But it's funny that we both picked 5 teams to make the playoffs out of this division, which I think suggests that we both are on the same wavelength, that it's going to be a tough division. Every night that they play each other is going to be worth every point, and I think what our predictions also show that there's not going to be a big point gap. It's not like anyone's going to run away with this division, but anyone can also probably beat anyone on any given night. So it's going to be really interesting. So I guess we'll start at the bottom, and we both agree. What do you got there?
Columbus Blue Jackets. We both have them missing the playoffs, not even really being in contention and coming out the bottom. A lot of question marks probably coming in this season with the whole Torts on his way. Lane is going into his last bits of his contract. What's going to go on there? But honestly, it's going to be a little bit of a shakeup. They got Atkinson leaving town.
Voracek back.
Yep, Voracek back. Seth Jones left town. Like it's going to be a new look Chicago or Columbus team this year. But a lot, like given how difficult this division is looking to shape up, it was hard for me to, even though if they might be okay on paper, they might not. If you match them up against other divisions, they might be somewhat more competitive with their at least basement. This division's stacked in my books, and they're going to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, they're just, to me, they're a team that just doesn't have the elements anymore. Well, not anymore, but they had the elements for the coach, or they had the elements for what they were trying to do. I still don't understand the Dubois for Laine trade. Why would you move off a guy like Dubois?
It all really can't. He wanted out though. So like when a person starts like kind of wanting out, that's kind of the thing. They do seem to have, like, Max Domi was suspected to be the guy chosen from this team in the expansion draft, and he kind of stayed. So they do have somewhat of a center depth with Roslovic if he steps up the way he was playing pretty good down the stretch last season. And they do have, I guess, Boone generally. They have, I'm just trying to sell it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that, like, I like both of their goalies. I know I've debated offline with some people, Merzlikins versus Korpisalo. Some people are saying that Edmonton should get Korpisalo. I think that's a mistake. I actually thought they were going to go out and spend and get Merzlikins when they lost out on Kemper. I thought they were just going to basically say, screw it, let's just go get the young kid that we want moving forward. And then he signed that extension in Columbus. So we'll see where that goes. But Columbus has some nice possible pieces at the deadline. I think the GM's trying to do something, and we'll see in terms of bringing in more talent. Laine could be a distraction. We'll see where that goes this year. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be terrible. If they actually were in the Atlantic, I think that they would be better than a team or two. They're probably better than maybe even 3 teams. So we'll see. But they're not going to be not competitive, but they're not going to be great.
Exactly. We're on the same page. Let's move on. So New Jersey, we both have them in the same spot, second last in the division. And for me, it's a lot of the same story as Columbus. This division, they just have a big competition ahead of them. And they're a lot of the same team as last year. And the goalies, the question marks, it's really a big question mark back there on that side of things too. So, I think overall they'll be a more competitive team than last year, but still a lot of room for this team to grow because they're still very young in a lot of aspects.
Yeah, I mean, New Jersey is really an interesting team for me, and it wasn't until a couple of years ago. Like, I always kind of hated them for their history with the Leafs. And then I just kind of didn't like how they just never were bad, and it just kind of irritated me. So I just hated them for the longest time. But then a couple of years ago, one of my family friends I found out was a Jersey Devils fan. So I kind of, I sat down, watched a couple of games with them, whatever, and I didn't mind them. They grew on me a little bit. And then I thought that they were kind of, almost hipster-ish team. Where if you asked kind of one of those hipster fans who you're a fan of, a lot of them would be Devils
I'll be
fans.
honest
There's
with
a lot of
yeah,
I was
exactly.
just gonna say there's a lot of obscure references in like films and TV shows with the Devils. So they're just kind of like that weird, strange pick with them, right?
Yeah,
But they made some good additions.
they went out and dressed. They stacked up their defense. I like what they did. They brought in Ryan Graves for some depth, and they bring in the big free agent, right? Dougie Hamilton.
Yep.
Big ad, and they still have PK Subban, who is now going to be like a fourth guy up.
Yep.
So,
And they also have a guy, I forget his first name. He had this TJ or Ty Smith, I think is his name. He's a defenseman. He's a
yep, Ty
prospect.
Smith. Yep.
Ty Smith. He should be a really good young player for them. So that's another defenseman. They're probably actually going to move Subban, and they're going to have to retain money and or get a third team involved to save some money to get him onto another team. I actually think that team might be end up being Toronto. Um, we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
I think that the Devils are going the right way. They've got a nice prospect that I'm a fan of in Alexander Holtz. He's a big goal scorer that's coming up for them.
Yep.
They've got the Hughes brothers, so that's another young scoring
One
winger.
brother. Yep.
Well, they've got did they draft no, the other one went to Buffalo, right?
Somewhere else.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought for some reason that the other
Oh
one.
no, you're right. Luke Hughes. Yeah.
Luke
Sorry, I thought you
Hughes,
were
yeah,
referring to
yeah.
Quinn. Luke Hughes did get signed by he got drafted.
Drafted
Sorry,
by
he's a
Okay, I was gonna say,
19-year-old defenseman, so he won't be in there for a little bit. But like
Oh, okay.
he'll be there eventually, right?
I thought he was a forward. My bad. I thought he was a winger.
I'm assuming
confusing him
if
with,
you're saying that he's the brother, he's on their top prospect list with the last name Hughes. I'm gonna assume that's the guy.
Yeah, I'm confusing him with the guy that went. I'm confusing him with Seth Jarvis. I think the guy that went to Buffalo.
Okay. Yeah,
Anyways,
no,
I'm confusing a couple wingers,
they definitely
but yeah.
are interesting making some moves. For me, the biggest question mark is going to be goaltending. They bring in Bernier to be the backup to Blackwood, but now the whole kind of thing what we talked about with Bertuzzi in the last episode, we have Blackwood unvaxxed, going to be missing however many games that leads to. That's a large portion, so they're going to have to be riding on Bernier back there. Not really a history of Bernier really carrying teams the load along the way, so to me that's their limiting factor.
Yeah, I mean their defense is going to be well improved. I actually am a big fan of their defense. I think it's their best quality. Their goaltending's okay. If they had Blackwood there,
Yep.
it would be solid. The question for them will be scoring, or at least secondary scoring. Or if they have the secondary scoring, they'll be missing some primary scoring, whatever the case may be. I think that's what's really going to hold them back.
Yeah.
But in terms of when you first brought up Pittsburgh, I think they'll be close. I think they'll be within a few points. I really do. I think they're closer than people probably.
Yeah, I had originally had
credit for.
Pittsburgh behind them until I kind of rethought that. I feel like the goalie situation just hinders that little bit, in my opinion.
Well, let's transition then. Why are you sour on Pittsburgh, or what's your
I just
feel
think
on them?
they've just. I know they won the division last year. I get that. They won the division they were in, I think, and then they lost to the Islanders pretty handily. Same kind of. They're kind of full of the same teams as last year. I don't know. I just it's kind of what in my gut. It just does not feel good. Malkin's out for the foreseeable future. Jeff Carter's really their next man up on center, so like the depth is definitely shot in that aspect. They always do have the wingers. They have some solid wingers throughout their team. I don't know if Jari and this defense they've put together can really hold down the fort against a division where everyone else seems to just be on the rise. So for everyone to kind of be on the rise, someone's got to be falling with the odd man out, and it feels like it's Pittsburgh to me.
I'm pretty much on the exact same page. And one thing you skipped over when you said next man up for Jeff Carter, with Crosby being injured, is the fact that Malkin's also injured.
I said Malkin.
So
I did not know Crosby's injured too.
Yeah, Crosby and Malkin are both
Okay.
injured. So Carter will be the first line center for that team, I would assume.
I did not know Crosby. I knew
forgetting.
Malkin was out for foreseeable future, but Crosby same boat.
Yeah. No, I think Crosby's out 4 to 6 weeks or something like
Oh
that.
damn. Okay, that's
Yeah,
news to me.
so
Changes it, yeah.
so changes their start, which means they're gonna have a really good finish, which I don't think they have that type of team that and play at that level for that kind of sustained period of time
Yeah.
during that portion of the season. So I just think that they're going to start off poor and never really get their momentum or tempo. Like I still think they'll get their points and they'll put up their goal scoring and whatever when everyone gets healthy. But I
Sounds
just don't think
good.
this is going to be their year.
All right, moving on up. We both have the same team in the fifth slot, both saying this team's going to make the playoffs, which is a big step from where they've been the past 2 years. The New York Rangers on the up and up. I'll let you lead things off this time.
The way I'm coming at this is if anyone specifically in Leafland wants to have the debate of, do you go with top heavy or do you build the best team for success? You cannot contradict yourself and say that New York won't be a playoff team when they're a better built team than every other team that is a non-playoff team. Yes, they maybe don't have the flashy special names, but what they make me think of is a couple of years ago when the Islanders were a joke. They're a joke. Oh, they're getting a little bit better, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're this team that you don't really consider a joke anymore, and like they're not rebuilding anymore. They're that team that's competing. The one thing I will say is that they have a lot of dead cap in buyouts and stuff. That's really going to come back and hurt them when they're really going for it to add those final pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of adding guys like Ryan Reeves, I think that he's going to add a lot for that team. And I think that team, after what happened to them last year at the end of the season, is out with a us versus everyone else mentality.
Yep.
And I think that's going to go well for them.
People forget what happened at the end of the season last year. You're talking about the line brawl, right?
Mm-hmm. And Panarin being thrown down and having it like we forget the Rangers won 11 of their last 13 games or whatever it was, and they only missed the playoffs by I'm making stuff up, but I'm pretty close, like 3 points or something like that. Like they were out and they were in until the last game or two.
Yeah, they were in until the end. I was hoping I was rooting them for sure, and they went out like you said, bring in Ryan Reeves and Goodrow. He's kind of known to not. He's a little feisty sometimes. Like they're bringing in the guys to protect their guys because they have a lot of guys that can shoot, can score. Some of them unproven still super young. Will Kako take a step forward? Will Lafreniere take a step forward? That's what they hope, and really, it's only up from here for a team like this.
But they, like you said, they signed the players to fill the roles that they don't want to have to ask these kids to do. It's almost like what Vancouver tried to do too early a couple of years ago, but it's just like they went out and got the Goudreaus and the Reeves to forecheck, to punch people, to kill penalties, block shots, whatever, so that, like you said, the Kakos, the Lafrenieres, whatever, can go and do what they're good at and go and shoot the puck and create offense and not worry about having to play defense. They're not worrying about having somebody chase you into the corner and smash you through the glass.
If I had to rank top 5 teams that I'm excited to watch play hockey this year, Rangers are definitely on that list.
Now, if Shesterkin wasn't on them, how would you still say that?
He's a big part of it because I think he's an entertaining guy to watch in net. He dives around. He reminds me of Hasek in ways, and he's good. So I'm high on him, as we all know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, though. This division's going to be one of those divisions where pretty much no matter what the game is, I won't be quick to change off the channel.
Yep.
All right. Some good hockey.
Let's talk Philadelphia Flyers. I think you have them next as 4th. I have them 3rd, so pretty much the same. Like we set off the top. It's gonna be a tight division. Some of these teams probably can be pretty interchangeable. That's why we have the tier lists of kind of who's the top 3, who's the bubbly teams and that. So we'll talk about the Flyers. I don't know. The Flyers, they went out there and addressed the biggest issue they've had for years, the defense. And they addressed it in a big way, bringing in Ristolainen, bringing in Yandel, bringing in Ellis, 3 big-name defensemen that have played big roles on big teams. So I think they addressed, I almost call him Kevin Hart, but Carter Hart. He's going to have some guys in front of him, so he might be a little bit. He was left on the hook a lot last year, and he got lit up a lot last year.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
they did the right moves for a team that is in this super competitive division.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm a big fan, and like you said, all these teams are going to be so close. So like, it's not even really worth debating who's better because
Yeah,
they're all really in the same tier. By the end of the season, I think they're all going to be pretty much like within 7 points, anyways. Maybe not the Rangers, but Philly,
there might be
Carolina,
again
Washington, and
a
the Islanders.
surprise team that sucks and a surprise team that injuries play a role for sure. That could
Mhm.
change the landscape, but going into it, it's pretty close.
Yeah, and with Philly, I think that they got a better recipe up front. I think that they moved the right pieces around. They got some right guys. I mean, Cam Atkinson, my understanding is either grew up or was born in Philly.
Hmm.
So I mean, that's like going to your childhood team. So like he's jacked for that.
Yeah,
I always thought their forwards were good, but last year they were trying so hard to defend because they didn't have good defensemen that they couldn't score. Now that I think they have defensemen that can play defense, I think their forwards can now focus and reshift about playing offense. The JVRs, the Girouxs, I mean, Voracek last year, but before he got moved, those guys can now go back to playing offense.
yep,
And I think that that's going to do wonders for them. And I think that they could be maybe the most improved team in at least the Eastern Division this year.
yeah. I can see that, and I don't really have much to add to that.
Well,
So
then let's head to the next one.
next team up, we got Washington Capitals. They're my fourth place team. Um, Much different than yours. You're seeing them on top. You're putting them on top. For me, I don't know. I just think they're aging. Aging. These younger teams are going to start putting in work against them. They haven't had great postseasons the past 2 years either. So I don't know. I'm wondering if that's. I know it's 3 years now. Stanley Cup hangovers kind of ridiculous, but I'm wondering if it's starting to wear down on them the way this 82 game season. Are they going to be able to handle it? And that's kind of my concerns. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a team I had to put money on right now to be the team that does falter, or to be that team that you're referencing where, they do surprise and don't live up to the expectations, I'd probably put that money on Washington.
Yeah,
Um, that being said, I think last year was just a circus.
yeah. It's
Like
hard
kind
to
of what I was,
it's hard to put a lot of
it's
weight on what happened the past 2 years.
Yeah, and I mean with the whole COVID happening and then the COVID distractions and the players clearly not taking it seriously. I don't know what it's worth, but Russians playing on American soil during the beginning of the pandemic, there was
It's
a
valid.
few incidents in the NHL for whatever reason. I still like what they have. They added Mantha, which was, I
Yeah,
think, a huge addition for them. I don't really see where the weakness is. However, I don't love the combination of Kuznetsov and Backstrom as your top two centers. I thought this was the summer to change that. Um, so maybe they do have a bit of a stale element to them as well, which is what you're kind of picking up on.
yeah.
Um, I actually every time I look at this division, I want to almost switch my predictions. There's something on each day that like stands out to me more, and that's why I really struggled and had a challenge in this division. Because one day I look at Washington and be like, no, they've got the best collection of everything. And I look at Carolina and be like, well, they work the hardest, and like they've shown us that they work the hardest. Then you got Islanders who are like clearly they can play the best hockey and shut down teams, especially when it matters, but do they have the scoring punch, especially losing Eberle, to go punch for punch with some of these offensive teams in the regular season over 82 games, not playing the same teams that they can, you
Yeah,
know, find a way to shut down
yeah.
in a
Put
better
over the
sense. So I
same.
don't know.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. No, it's gonna be. I'm excited to watch this division how it plays out.
Mm. Yeah, and I could see any of these teams out of those five being on top, and any of them 1 through 4. Really, if I had to pick one team, the least likely, like I said earlier, the Rangers. I think the Rangers might be a half a tier lower than the other teams, but the other teams, I think, are in the tier of Boston and Tampa and even Florida, um, and that's why I
Totally.
have all those teams in the playoffs.
All right, let's talk. We got two more teams to quickly touch base on. I'm gonna just switch now to the New York Islanders, my top pick of the division and your third pick. For me, they did lose Eberle. They didn't. He would honestly probably a pretty good thing in terms of cap for them to make up that space. Otherwise, they might have been running into issues, and it allowed them to really bring back pretty much everyone on the roster. They're throwing out there almost the same team as last year for the most part. Letty's gone again, another one of those. Seems like a heavy salary that kind of cut some dead weight, and they're a team that had some depth on defense, so it allows the next guy to kind of step up. Funny enough, named Sebastian Aho, kind of going to start playing in there. Andy Green's back for another year. Got the veteran presence back there. And we got their two goalie tandem with Varlamov and Sorokin. Both guys that are very capable in front of this team. They've shown proven. So I have them on top. I don't know. Ever since we started this pod, kind of had a hate on for them at the beginning. And then I kind of just was like, all right, I'm going to try liking this team and predicting them good. And it's worked out in my favor. So I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yeah. I don't know if I can go as far as saying I like the Islanders. Just because I have almost a sense of like the old era hanging on to like the old style of hockey through the Islanders. And it's not that I don't like that style. It's not that I don't play that style. It's not that I don't like that style or think it can win. I just think that the NHL speaks or shows that they want to go in this other direction. But then you see a team like that have the most success. Start to look at some of these penalties being called in preseason. If this happens to be a year where we do move forward into a new generation style playoff hockey, which I know I've got frustrated in podcasts before about, at one point, we're going to see it. At one point in the future, we're going to say, oh, this was the year it happened, where they finally cracked down on this bullshit. If it happens to be this year, it would hurt the Islanders.
You think so? I think it could help them. I don't think it matters that much in their style. I think one of the most underrated players in the whole entire National Hockey League is Matthew Barzal. The guy can make some unreal things happen. He's proven. At first, you thought it was a big part to do with Tavares, but now he's managed to do it without him. So I think it's going to be a coming out party. I think this year for Barzal. I have a lot of faith in him. Well, so that's all I got really to say to them.
I just feel like there's teams out there, and their philosophy, Boston being one of them, that if you have a post whistle scrum and you punch a guy in the face, you do that 10 times, you're only going to get 3 or 4 penalties. So punch the guy in the face 10 times, take the couple penalties, and then you technically win because you've punched people in the face more than penalties you've been taking. Yeah. So, like, over the long haul, people get annoyed and pissed that you're punching them in the face, and they retaliate because they eventually have to take care of themselves, and then they get the power play, they score, and then they beat you. And I get the same kind of vibe. I put the Islanders in the same pocket, and that it just makes me think twice about them as a regular season team. Like, I know you referenced other teams. Certain teams are more regular season teams. I think that a Washington Capitals, Pittsburgh, even though this isn't quite their year probably, but some of those teams are better at regular season. I think the Islanders are one of those teams that the top teams are like, yes, we're going into the playoffs as the higher seed, but we actually view ourselves as
that's a good point. Now that I kind of look at that, if I look at that kind of from that using that kind of lens, I would agree that they're probably not your typical regular season performers. Like, they might finish second, third in the division, but be the best team when it comes to playoff time.
Go to the Final Four. Yeah.
I can see that. All right, last but not least, the Carolina Hurricanes making some moves specifically in net, but also some interesting signings as well, or trades, or however they landed D'Angelo. Not that I want to give him a lot of time, but that was somewhat interesting. They lose Dougie Hamilton on the back end, so it's going to be next man up with Slavin or Pesk or someone stepping up back there. Will they be able to fill the shoes that Slavin had, or that Dougie Hamilton had? Yeah. So that's going to be a question mark for sure. But for the most part, the top 2 lines are very much in check. Top 3 lines even, very much in check for them. So their offense is going to be there as per usual.
I don't know. I struggle with Carolina. One time I look at their roster and I'm like, I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
But then then I remember Rod Brind'Amour as the coach. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. He gets more out of his players, and it's just kind of like sometimes it just doesn't work for you. I mean, look at Travis Green in Vancouver or some other teams where like be known as similar coaches where it just didn't work certain years here or there.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to give them the respect and be like, no, like they're a good team and they always find a way to be at the top. But then I'm like, what am I not understanding? So like they're one of those teams that I'm like, oh yeah, they're better than these teams. They'll be better than the Islanders. They're better than Washington. Then I look at them and I'm like, are they better than the Rangers? Are they
I feel
better
like
than I'm
going
confused
back
by
to that
them.
last conversation we had. To me they are a regular season team. They have
Yeah.
4 solid lines. Like I'm looking at their depth, their fourth line, their projected fourth line, all new guys, but all guys that have been a part of the league for a number of years. Some veteran presence coming in. But like you said, I don't know. Like it wouldn't shock my world if they didn't perform up to the top as they did last year. Wouldn't shock my world if they have an issue in net, because that seems to be a Carolina Hurricanes trademark to have issues in net.
Yeah.
They bring in 2 guys.
Wow.
You always talk about new goalie, new team, big issue. And their backup being Ranta, who's brought in to back up Anderson. Like Ranta's injury prone as like every year.
Both injury prone over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so there are
And
concerns.
that's the thing is Carolina kind of was known as this defensive two-way team. And then they got these forwards and they're like, damn, they're a two-way team that can score and defend and have good goalies. And then it all changed. And I don't know if this recipe's better. Like
Yeah.
Dougie Hamilton or Anthony D'Angelo, who would you rather have on your team in terms of production? Dougie Hamilton. Who would you rather have on your team in terms of character? I don't know either, but I would presume based on what we think we know, it's Hamilton.
Yep.
So you got a worse player with a worse attitude, and now you're depending on more of your other players, which I like their other defensemen, but I don't think any of them are really offensive like Hamilton was. Like Hamilton was their guy on the power play. Like
it's gonna
I
be
don't know
interesting
who
how their
fills the
power
role.
play. Yeah, who steps up there? Could be anyone.
Yeah, it could be, but
Could
then
be
also
D'Angelo.
defensively, it probably will be, which pisses me off because I don't think the fucking guy should be in the goddamn NHL. And I think that you look at teams like Carolina and Montreal who basically had suck attacks and had temper tantrums and did stupid things that were poor on the image of the NHL, but they didn't care because they're like, oh well, we want to win, or we lost our player and we can't just do nothing. Well,
Yeah.
don't hire shitty people. If
I'm a firm believer
better
in
human the
second
opportunity.
chances, maybe third chances sometimes, but we need to see something to earn.
My understanding, he didn't do any work.
Yeah,
And if he
that's
didn't do any
what
work,
I meant. Yeah.
he didn't earn a second opportunity. And as far as I'm concerned, if he has done the work, yes, he deserves a second opportunity. And Carolina deserves for their season to go well and maybe see a bounce back. If he hasn't, in fact, done the work, they deserve for him to be a cancer and either have to cut him or him to be a cancer and throw their whole season out of whack.
Yeah, we'll
And
see.
I wouldn't care.
But
we'll see.
Man, how pumped are you for this season? Because all these
I can't
stories,
wait.
yeah, it's so exciting. Hopefully,
I was
everyone.
looking through the schedules today, just in terms of fantasy, and I was so excited just seeing all the different matchups and like not seeing the same logo all the time and being like, oh, that would be a good week. Oh, that's a good matchup.
Yeah,
oh, that
like
back to back's cool. Like,
Yeah, the
there's
NHL
so many
last
things.
year, like it was exciting for the first couple, even like first 2 months, but by month 3, 4, of seeing the same teams playing the same teams, it did get a little dull. Even in the playoffs, we're kind of repeating on the same teams, right? This year it's a whole new ball game. We're going to 2022 in 4 months, so it's going to be a new world.
For sure. There's definitely some viewers fatigue, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's renewed now. I can't wait. I think I'm in a new lens of just appreciating good hockey as a whole.
Yeah.
With me basically kind of almost being on the sidelines with the Leafs, I'm just kind of...
It's much more enjoyable on this side, man.
Uh-huh.
Much more enjoyable.
Especially
just
when we
loving
share the
game.
NHL package and we can just watch it and talk about it. This year's going to be a good year, so everybody stay tuned, and we'll be getting over to the Western divisions shortly, I guess.
Yeah. Peace out, guys.
Awesome. Take care.